Okay, welcome to Read for Pleasure and Study to Learn. I'm Jack Hunt, and we have a special request to touch on Zechariah chapter 1, verse 18 through 21. Now, there will be times during this broadcast that I will have to refer to my notes because there are a myriad of notes on all of these subjects, and I can't possibly remember each and every one. So you may from time to time see me go very scholarly, okay? And that's so I can read these notes. So, but until then, we'll do it this way. All right. Now, the thing we have to remember about Zechariah and all of the prophets is that sometimes it's difficult to really understand what's being said simply because they are prophets and they are telling what the Lord is showing to them in the future. Now, sometimes it's obvious that that future is in the immediate future of Israel, for example, and sometimes it's not that obvious. Sometimes that prophecy goes far, far beyond Israel in the first century. It goes to Israel today, and as far as that goes, even the Gentiles. It goes to the Gentiles today, which of course is every person except the Jews. Now, we have to keep in mind that at this time in chapter 1, Zechariah is specifically talking to the Jews, and he is trying to get them to understand that the vision he has had from an angel of the Lord, and of course that angel of the Lord is none other than the pre-incarnate Jesus. Jesus, of course, has been around since the beginning, and this is his entrance, if you will, if you want to call it that, into Zechariah's prophecy. And this angel of the Lord that Zechariah speaks of comes to him, and he has these visions. And some theologians, in fact a lot, maybe most, say that they think most of these 8 visions all came in one night. But to me, that's totally unimportant whether they came in one night or 8 nights, but just a thought that I wanted to share with you. Now, they will speak in this 18 through 21, they will speak of 4 horns. Now, those 4 horns represent, and you've heard of 4 horns before if you've studied in the Bible, because in Daniel, he was trying to explain to Nebuchadnezzar what his dream meant, and he mentioned these, but it was not in the form of horns. It was actually a statue, and that statue had 4 different types of composites that made it up. And of course, it was bronze and silver and gold and clay, and so he uses different terminology in Zechariah, but I think they're representing the same thing. These 4 horns represent Babylonia, the Medo-Persians, the Greek, and the Romans. And that is the order in which Israel, and in fact the world, was conquered. Babylonia came and conquered Israel and sent the Jewish people into exile for 70 years. And then the Medo-Persians conquered Babylon. And then the Greeks, with Alexander the Great, conquered the Medo-Persians. And then, of course, the Romans conquered the Greeks. And so these 4 horns represent the bodies of power that have overthrown the Jewish nation, if you will, as they knew it at that time. Okay? And if you want to refer over to Daniel and see what I'm talking about with the statue and the 4 different types of metal and so forth that was made of it, go to Daniel 2 and you can find that, and it will explain it, I think, very clearly to you. Now, it goes on to mention 4 carpenters, and those were people or even nations possibly that God sent, empowered to cut off the 4 horns, to destroy these 4 nations. Now, there is many varied interpretations of that. So to settle on one would really be difficult to do. But it's possible that Zerubbabel, Joshua, Ezra, and Nehemiah were 4 people who actually came to terrify the 4 bodies of people who were trying to destroy the Jews. And so that is a possibility we have to contend with. Now, other possibilities could also be Cyrus of Persia and his successors. So that is a contending party. But as I said earlier, there you can get into a can of worms here that can never be closed, because you can find evidence of lots of different representatives of those symbols, and you can, if you're not careful, you can get so tied up in the technicalities that you completely lose sight of the objective. And the objective here is to understand that God will raise his hand against his chosen people to discipline them, and he will use heathen or barbaric countries a lot of times to do that. Now, it's kind of hard to understand how a loving, caring God would side with a heathen government, if you will, or country, to beat down the Jewish people, his chosen people. But as we have all heard, God works in mysterious ways. But ultimately, all of those will be defeated by Jesus Christ himself. Okay? Ultimately, no one will overpower or take over or establish a lasting forever kingdom except Jesus himself. So all of these are temporary, and they are used to make a point to Israel and to the rest of the world. Don't get so comfortable with how great you think you are, how chosen you think you may be. God will discipline your sinful ways. You are not the pet of the class, the teacher's pet, okay? You will be disciplined. And so that is a reminder to us that we like to call ourselves a Christian nation. And I hope that we are. Sometimes I question it when I see the news, but I hope that we are. But some people have the false impression that because we're a Christian nation and maybe some other foreign nation is pagan or a complete non-believers nation, that there is no way they can ever harm us. That is completely false. Absolutely, completely false. So you need to get that out of your head. Yes, God could completely use one of these foreign nations that is a pagan nation that does not allow Christianity to be practiced in their nation. He could certainly use those to totally destroy this country. And so you need to get that straight in your head, that no one is above the discipline of God. You sin, you pay. There is a price to be paid for each and every sin. Okay? So never forget that. Now, what I said earlier, I'll go back to it. These four horns and the four carpenters, I should say, they could be nations instead of individuals. I have mentioned individuals like Joshua and Ezra and so forth, but they could be actual nations themselves. And I'm gonna hang my hat back on the original statement. There is a myriad of interpretations on this, and so it's hard to actually pick one and go with it. You have to do a lot of research on that, and it will lead you in so many different directions, and so many cross references, and so many different things. And even in the end, amongst biblical scholars, doctors of theology, there's some debate about what is actually being said on some of these prophecies. Prophecies are difficult because it's just hard to tell if we're talking, if the guy doing the prophecy is he's talking about today or next week or next month, or is he talking 3,000 years in the future, 2,000 years in the future, 1,000? But as we know, many places in the Bible will talk about prophecy and we'll talk about things of the future, and they actually will overlap. In other words, when in Revelation, when the 7 letters are written to the 7 churches in Asia Minor, I firmly believe that those 7 churches don't just represent the 7 churches of Asia Minor of that day. I think those 7 churches represent every church on the face of this planet. And when you read what Jesus said about the churches and what he liked and disliked about them, if you will look at your church, you'll find your church somewhere in those 7. And I believe pretty much every church will find that. So that bit of prophecy in those letters is for then, now, and forevermore. And so it's hard to discern sometimes. It's really hard to discern exactly which period a prophet is speaking of. And of course, there are other times when it's evident, clearly evident, which era he's speaking of. So it's just a matter of not only reading that particular entrance, but reading many things leading up to that. Reading about what's going on in the area at that particular time. Reading what the people were up against at that time, what they were seeking at that time. And a lot of that will have to do with what that prophet's actually addressing. So you have to, in order to understand the prophets clearly, you have to be, I think, a master theologian. And I don't know how many of those there actually are. I'm sure there are some. But still, like I've said before, I think even amongst them, they will have questions or debates about different things when it comes to prophecy. Now, I hope that helps some. I'm going to look down at my notes for just a minute now. I'm going to get scholarly on you, like I said, and I'm going to look down my notes and see if there's something I can add that will maybe clear up a point for you. Okay, let me see now. This is talking about the 4 carpenters, and it says, God had assured Israel of ultimate deliverance from those who had afflicted them. The second vision becomes more specific, showing four horns scattering the people, and then that's the ones I talked about: the Babylonians, the Medo-Persians, the Greeks, the Romans. Okay, that's scattered the people. Then four carpenters in turn fraying each of these. Now the term fraying means taking over or terrifying or controlling the others. Now, most likely Zechariah would understand these to refer to the famous dream image of Nebuchadnezzar, which I mentioned earlier, which was interpreted by Daniel, and no doubt well known to the Jews of the exile being the 70 years of exile in Babylon. The Jews were very, very adept at the Old Testament because that's all they had at that time. There was no New Testament until after Jesus came. So this Old Testament was very precious to them, and a major part of every Jewish father's obligations was to teach his children the scriptures, word for word, as it had been handed down. That was one of his major obligations. If you recall, in a lot of instances, the woman of the house did almost all the work. I mean, she worked in the fields, she cooked, she sewed, she went to the well to get the water that they drank. About the only thing that I don't recall the woman doing is shepherding the sheep, or the herds, so to speak, cattle, goats, whatever they were. But everything else, a woman was pretty responsible for at that time. And the man, like I said, was very obligated to teach his children the scriptures. And so at that time, they would have been very, very aware of what is the Daniel's dream was, and very aware of what each section of it indicated and was trying to say. So they're very aware of that. So we have to keep that in mind. This is a Jewish nation that is very, very good in the Old Testament, okay, as far as understanding it. Forecasting four great kingdoms embracing the time of the Gentiles. Some of these had been fulfilled already, like Babylon and Persia, with Greece beginning to threaten off in the distance. Babylon and Persia had already come and gone, and now the Greeks are causing some disturbances out kind of on the fringes here. And so history would show the fourth to be Rome, of course, and each of these would in turn be cut down. Babylon by Persia, Persia by Greece, Greece by Rome, and Rome in its final extension by Christ himself. So eventually these horns of the Gentiles would be utterly cast out. So the carpenters are individuals or nations that have come to I'm going to say, bring the fight to these countries that had overtaken the Jewish nation, and to bring that Jewish nation back to a place of prominence and freedom and so forth. And so they could all, reconstruct their temple that was destroyed, and rebuild their cities and so forth. So that is about the best I can offer you on Zechariah 1:18 through 21. I hope that answers your question, but if not, I would be happy to, if you have a more specific question, I'll be glad to try to answer that for you.